Hi everyone, this is Elena of the Witches Box, and I'm here today with another episode of Witch Booktube. And today we're going to be talking about Curative Magic by Rachel Patterson. It's a witch's guide to self-discovery, care, and healing. It's a really beautifully illustrated cover. I love the design. This is really pretty. I'm going to read to you really quickly Rachel's bio, and then I'm going to get into the book. And I want to say that we're probably going to deviate a bit from the book. It's probably going to be equal parts book review and me going off and riffing on a topic. So if you want to pause and grab some tea or some water or some coffee so that you can get comfortable, we're going to go on a ride. Rachel Patterson is the high priestess of the Kitchen Witch Coven and an elder at the Kitchen Witch School of Natural Witchcraft. She's the author of 20 books on witchcraft and is a regular contributor to Pagan Dawn, Witchcraft and Wicca, as well as websites Patheos Pagan and Witches and Pagans. Rachel lives in Hampshire, England, and you can visit her online at www.rachelpatterson.co.uk. There's that. I want to read also a quick read of the table of contents so that you have an idea of what's in the book, and then I'm just going to dive in. Part 1 is called The Beginning, and it's 5 chapters. The beginning is Introduction to How to Work with the Book. Chapter 2 is The Spiritual You. Chapter 3 is The Magical You. 4 is Getting Crafty. 5 is Introduction to Shadow Work. And then Part 2 is a very long section where it's magical self-care for specific conditions. And these are the conditions that she speaks to and she offers recipes for and rituals for. So anxiety, stress, depression, panic attacks, fear, guilt, worry, grief, self-esteem, general obstacles and blockages, sleep issues, menses and menopause, transitions and changes. And then part 3 is about guidance and moving forward, creating a magical pantry, bath and body care for healing, guides, plants, animals and gods, chakra health, turning to nature, moons, elements, and seasons, finding and holding your focus. It's interesting. I read this book. I first picked it up because it had been making its rounds on social media. It was released sometime, I think mid 2020. But the word curative really kind of hooked me because so much of what I see in our witchcraft community in terms of this type of conversation is so all around self-care. And under the umbrella of self-care, we talk about things like maybe setting boundaries, like taking a bath, having a mani-pedi, having a day off with friends. Like, it is still in the realm of what I find to be a little too superficial. The other thing is that there have been a couple of books, and I know that I reviewed one a couple of years ago, I'm not remembering the name now, that did talk about spells to help support mental health issues. This book does this as well. What I enjoyed about the book is that in terms of having a really hefty resource in your library for magical practices to help support anxiety or depression or all the things that I mentioned here, it's got a lot to work with that you can play with to see which ones help alleviate some of those symptoms and which ones don't. I also did enjoy, but it left me wanting, is that the very first section, it covers what is basic definitions of things like altar, meditation, ritual, spell work. It just gives you a very basic definition of all of those aspects of witchcraft before it jumps into, all right, you've got anxiety. These are like 5, 6, 10 different things that you could do to support it. She starts out the book with the premise that there is no substitute. Witchcraft is not a substitute for a diagnosis or seeking professional medical help. But it also points out that our personal care, our health in all ways, mental, physical, emotional, is in our hands. And as witches, we do the work of healing. And so it makes sense to turn that work on ourselves. And this is where I'm always left wanting with all of these books, because I have yet to read a book that really goes into the depth of what does day-to-day self-care and healing look like. This book attempts to do that in a very summary way. So the very first section that I read, which I think is only maybe 40 pages. It includes shadow work. So let's say, 53 pages. In the first 52 pages, it really kind of gives you a very summary overview of different ways to care for your body, for your mental health, for your psychological health. And then it goes into prescriptives in terms of supportive practices for all those things. I really am longing for a book that goes into this in much more depth. We're not talking about this enough. One of the things that I take for granted, and more as I have more conversations with witches across the country and across the world, I recognize both how insular it can be being brought up and living predominantly in Southern California, as well as the level of privilege that comes with living in an environment that is so health conscious. I take for granted that we all have morning ablutions that we take care of, things that we do to start our health and to support our health and to support our body and our mental health, practices that are just intuitively and naturally woven into our day-to-day life. And when I have conversations with other people, it's like so much of this is very foreign. There is an argument to be made that in Southern California, we go way above and beyond in terms of the things that we do to keep ourselves healthy. Yes, that's absolutely a reality. But then there are these very, very basic things that are just incredibly foreign. And it's an interesting thing for me because I feel like part of being a witch, so much of what we do, how we connect. I've been talking about this. I sent out a newsletter last week about, for me, witchcraft at its core, the very core definition of witchcraft is a practice of connection, of connecting to myself, of connecting to the world around me, connecting to the seen and the unseen, being able to, because of those connections that we cultivate through practices, being able to read a room, read the energetic vibration of a land, connect with a tree energetically, connect with entities and ancestors and deity and the collective unconscious realm that we tap into energetically to manifest magically. So much of what we are as witches at its core is connection. And the extent to which we tend to ourselves, not in a selfish way, not in a narcissistic, dysfunctional way, but the more we tend to the very natural messaging from our bodies and from our minds and from our emotions in terms of the care and the boundary and the nourishment that we need, to the extent that we're able to manage those things, to respond to those things and be in connection to those things, is the extent to which we are going to be able to amplify our capacity to connect externally as well, right? Because if it's not within, it's not without. So the connection has to start with you. And I talk a lot about emotional and psychological connection. I talk a lot about the importance of therapy. I talk a lot about the importance of self-facing and self-inquiry as a way to continue to understand the motivations that subconsciously drive us, our shadow, so that we're able to be more impactful and effective and empowered in our lives in the world. So this is also true physically. And when I see a word like curative, it can be a little misleading. I never want to be a person that says that magic will cure all your diseases. That is not true. I'm also of the mind that we don't talk enough about the fact that we are part of a life cycle, and death and decay and degeneration is just as much a sacred part of life as being born and thriving and living a life. So when I move from this point and start talking about healing, I don't know that healing is always ever going to be that, oh, the disease is gone, or oh, that malady is gone, or oh, that wound is now disappeared. I don't know that that's what healing really is. And we might need to have a conversation at a later point about really all of the implications of what healing might be. But what I want to say here is this. There are things, there are healing arts, there are life arts of a witch that sustain the body, that sustain the mind, that sustain emotional health and maturity that we don't talk enough about. I wanted this book to be that. It wasn't fully that, but it gives you a really nice summary. It also gives you a nice list of different things that you might try as supportive practices if you do have anxiety, or you have sleepless nights, or you have issues with your menses or menopause and you want something to support your process through that. This book has that list. And for that, it's good. It's not diving as deep as I want these books to dive. And maybe the answer to that is that I write something, right? Because at this point, this is where we're at. But I want to drop in the idea that if your path as a witch is to be biophilic, is to love life and love nature and Mother Earth and this gorgeous cycle of complexity that we're all a part of, understand that you are a part of that too. Your body is a part of that too. Your mental health is a part of that too. Your emotional, intellectual, physical health, all of you is a part of that too. And one of the things that I find incredibly disturbing is that there is this conversation out there, you pick it up every once in a while, where someone gets shut down or shamed for wanting to talk about, these are ways to support your physical health, as if somehow supporting your own health is relegated to the place of privilege and therefore negative or bad. And it's not. Yes, in this world, it can be very expensive to eat really healthy, which is ridiculous, but it's what it is. Yes, in this world, it can be incredibly expensive to get the medical help that you need. it doesn't make it bad. It's just part of a broken system. There are things and wisdoms as witches that we can hold that are out there for us to have and share with one another that support our physical health, that support our mental health, that support our psychological health. Those are important things to be talking about because it is very much an intrinsic part of your magic. It is very much an intrinsic part of your spirituality. If we are actively in denial of the things that make us whole and make us well and support our being in the world, what does that say? If I can't connect in, I can't connect out. This is a part of, I think, a much larger conversation that I'm having with myself, especially when, here's the reality, self-care isn't always easy. Self-care is not necessarily supported in our larger context of culture because we are in a culture that's pushing us faster and harder and further than we should be going. And it's hard to step out of that rat race, to take a moment to say, what am I needing right now? Do I really need only 5 hours of sleep a night so that I can get to work every day and do all the things? Or do I really need 10 hours of sleep right now because my body needs it? The ability to connect into those cues of our body and then pay attention and honor those things and provide those things for ourselves is a very key component to our witchcraft path and to our magic and to our health. So I've kind of veered off all the things, but this book, I wanted it to be more. I'm not saying that I don't like it. It's a very extensive summary, which I think can be helpful if you want something like this in your library and you want to pull ideas in terms of, look, I'm going through this thing, I'm going through some difficulties. What could be a really great supportive magical practice? This book's got a great list for that, for many things. I already read to you in the beginning, the long list of things that she covers. So for that, I like. But there needs to be a deeper conversation, both in our community and in books, where we talk more about what are our health protocols? What are your protocols in terms of keeping your body healthy, in terms of keeping your body nourished and tended to and given attention to? What are your protocols for your own mental health? What are your protocols for your intellectual health? These are important conversations to be having because we're witches. We're organic. We're of the earth. We're of the mother, right? We are of connection to life in all its beautiful permutations. And if we start to really get honest with ourselves, to the extent that I'm cutting off connection to myself, I'm cutting off connection to the world around me. And so in that sense, what is the purpose of my spirituality? What am I really practicing? And this isn't about shaming people. And this isn't about, oh, you're doing it wrong. This is about asking the question so that there can be more expansion around this. There can be more space around this. There can be more wisdom pulled through around this. There are so many ways that we need to attend to ourselves that we don't because our culture doesn't support it. But we can do it and we can break out of those patterns. And it starts by asking the question. It starts by really taking some inventory about how are you living right now? There are parts of your life that you don't have a whole lot of control of, but there are parts of your life that you do. And in those moments, how are we choosing to support our curative magic? Right? What does that look like for you? On our website, we have the Witches Gathering Forum, which is a free forum for all of us because I want to create a space where we have community, where we can talk to each other about all things witchcraft in a way that's safe, that is very noiseless, right? Because I refuse to have a Facebook group. I think Facebook is a place that we all need to be getting off of. And groups on Facebook don't manage conversations in a way that's really conducive to continued conversation because once a conversation is old, it's buried deep in the thing. A forum isn't like that. So I'm saying that because in our Witches Gathering Forum, which is free to everyone if you register, we have a thread about what are your health protocols. And it's kind of gone dead, but I'm going to revitalize that because I really want to have a conversation where we get to share what are your methods? What are my methods? And what can I learn from yours? What can you learn from mine? And also understanding that those methods and those protocols will change and evolve over time as you get older, as your needs change, as your money flow changes, because that's also a part of it. Wellness is big and up for me right now. We're going to be talking in various ways about wellness, starting with Team Witchery in the next couple months, because it really needs to be at the forefront of what we do. If I really want wellness politically, if I want wellness socially, I need to embody some form of wellness as well. And this isn't about ableism. This is about being supported, right? Wellness is about being supported in whatever manifestation your health and body may have right now, right? So how's that for a Booktube video? There we go. Curative magic. Listen, again, this is probably like a 3.5. It doesn't go into depth, but it does give you a lot of good supported practices to choose from. So in that sense, I do recommend it. But the conversation, I think, needs to be deeper as we move forward as witches. And so I would love to have that with all of you in the forum. I'll put a link down below to joining that forum because it's free. All you have to do is register and create a login. And that's how we keep it private from the public eye. But once you're in and you see all the things. There are a bunch of other really great conversations going on there as well. We've got like soundtrack to doing different witchy rituals that just started. There's an amazing witchcrafty forum thread going on where people are sharing their crafts and all sorts of things. So there's more going on there other than this, but I really want to revitalize this conversation because I think that there's a lot for all of us to learn from one another and start to reshape this denial of this actual deeper conversation. It's more than taking a bath. It's more than setting the boundary. It's more than having a room of your own. There's more. We are not tending to the healing of our bodies the way witches have been doing it for hundreds of years. So I want to bring that back. I want to talk more about that, and hopefully you'll join me there. If you read this book, I'd love to hear what you thought. And that's it. I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye.